Hey guys, welcome back to another Ramble the Mad God video, and today's going to be just a light commentary one. I don't really have anything I wanted to upload or edit on for today. So I figured let's just do a little bit of live chatting because I haven't done one in quite a while, and most of my videos up until this point for a while have been scripted and edited and all that, and I figured maybe a couple videos here and there just to keep things more natural wouldn't be too bad. I don't have anyone with me today, just me. Hope you guys are okay with that. And I guess you can leave this in the background or something while you're working on homework, or if you're playing Realm yourself, and if you want to listen, that's fine. We're gonna be just doing some dungeons and stuff, but I actually do have a topic I wanted to talk about today, and it's about the state of events going on in Realm of the Mad God. So I figured, while we're doing that, I could just do a little bit of live commentary on the side so you have something to watch. Man. I haven't done shatters in quite a while actually. The last time I did it was during the event, the chest event. There were actually two of them that came out, and I just got really burnt out by this dungeon, so I never bothered to do it anymore. Oh jeez, we got some ringing bottled in. One sec. I will switch to Fury before I get destroyed. Alright, this should be kind of tough. See if we can run around and shoot. Alright, this is messy. Oh boy. Public shatters, what do you expect? There's a lot of stuff. Okay, never mind. This is a scuffed run. Let's get out of here. Whew, that was... that was a little ugly. Usually we need a lot of DPS if we want to rush it down. Lair of Draconis, okay. I'm actually very happy that they have a lot event going on because I really could use a bunch of marks. I explained in my previous video that lot is not the most desirable dungeon for people given how long it takes, how infrequently you get drops. It's one of those dungeons where you can't really like autopilot, you have to kind of focus, otherwise you'll die because there's a lot of stuff flying towards you. I also just like collecting a bunch of marks, and I do occasionally run into instances where I have a lot of Lair of Draconis events that I have to do, or not events, quests. I would like a stockpile of marks so that I don't have to do this dungeon too much. This is one of those dungeons where if people join and see that there's only like 10-15 people, they're just gonna leave, because usually you would need about 25 to 30 people. At least 10 of them have to make it to Ivory Wyvern for you to have a relatively smooth run, unless you have the patience to solo yourself. But while we're on that topic, there's been a growing number of people complaining about how monotonous the events have been for Realm, and I joined back in like March this year, so I've been playing for about 3 months now. I think that's actually the longest I've played Realm for a while. Normally I would just come back to Realm for maybe about a month or 2 months at most, and just see what's going on, typically during either Christmas or Month of the Mad God to participate in events. I like Realm because it's that game where you can come back to whenever you want to, and you can leave for 5-10 years even if you want to. You come back and it's pretty much the same game, you know? So you don't have to worry about missing out on any events that will set you permanently behind versus some other games where you are punished for your lack of commitment to the game. But in Realm, even if you have only like tier 12 weapon and tier 13 armor, tier 6 like wine cellar tops, you're still pretty viable compared to... Am I gonna crash? I think it's crashed, yeah. Where was I? Right. So even with wine cellar tops, which have been around for as long as the game has been out, I think, you can still participate in all of the content available to you. So it's not like you have to grind for 500 hours to have enough gear just to be able to take on these harder level dungeons. And I like that. But it also means that you don't have as much of an incentive to want to commit towards Realm because you don't necessarily need everything. I've gotten about 75 to 80% of all the white bags in the game and about half of all the ST drops. And I don't really have as much of an incentive to want to collect the rest unless, you know, maybe something's going on. I have been informed that there is a system being implemented soon that will help incentivize people to pursue more white bag drops and more STs, but at the moment, I don't really feel like I need it because I have a lot. I guess that's potentially where the aspect of trying to find different ways to challenge yourself in this game, such as PPE, NPE, UPE, all these other ways to play Realm with certain conditions and restrictions, reminds me a lot of Nuzlocke or other challenge runs that you would have in Pokemon games to add some different kind of spin-off or like randomizer runs, right? I don't know. like, while I do enjoy challenge runs, I also just don't like restricting myself when I play a game. I like to play to, you know, the fullest extent. I've never been too big a fan of things like mono runs in Pokemon. Sure, they might be fun because it forces you to think a certain way and like to alter your playstyle so you don't just steamroll through the game. And I actually have an idea for League of Legends in mind that I might work on in a couple days. But back to the event. People have been pretty vocal about how Deca has been somewhat uncreative when it comes to these events. Just like every week or so, it seems like there's just a chest event. And that's kind of drawn players into this mentality of just piling up into a single server, US East 2, or sometimes even US South, US Midwest, US Northwest, and just simply waiting for some guy to pop keys. And while that's okay, because like, you know, I actually do like the concept of keys. I think it's something that you don't see in many other games for you to remotely access a dungeon that you would normally find in game. Because in Realm, there's no such thing as parties. Like, you know, in other MMOs, you would form parties or raid groups of people. Everything is just a public thing and everyone shares buffs with each other. It allows you to host these really gigantic raids without necessarily needing to have people gather around. And it allows you to organize these events and to sort of run them without the need for too much organization or collaboration, right? And I like that because it adds sort of a bit of a chaotic mess to this whole game, and it's fun to play with a bunch of people because there are very few dungeons in this game where you can actively hurt other players if you play a certain way. I mean, sure, there are draggers, right? There are issues where you would run into someone, let's say, dragging 5 crusades on you in Lost Halls, and yes, that is quite precarious. Or, for example, someone intentionally running through the middle and shatters to activate all the enemies. Yes, it sucks, but at the same time, it's not anyone's fault if you die except yours, right? It's just your lack of spatial awareness, or maybe presence of mind, and you're just too stubborn to press Nexus, right? For me, I keep a safety margin when it comes to that. Even if I feel like I could survive, I would still follow my risk management in the game and just Nexus, because sure, whatever dungeon you're in, the potential loot you get is nice, right? But my character is probably nicer, which is why I think if you live to fight another day, there's no shame in that. Man, I'm going on so many tangents, I'm sorry guys. This is the problem with why I don't really like to do live commentary. Even though I enjoy live commentary more than post-narrative commentary, it can get extremely rambly, I feel like more so than other people, because when other people are doing live commentaries, they usually stay on topic, but when it comes to this, I have the attention span of a goldfish. Don't worry, don't have ADHD or anything like that, but I just, because I love conversation so much, I often run into a lot of tangents with people, and sometimes we start a conversation talking about politics, and then it switches to why lobsters need to be boiled alive before, you know, you cook them. So I hope you guys are okay with that. Alright, no, but seriously, I need to get back on topic. With events, I kind of agree in that I feel like the events have no longer become an exception and more of the rule. Back in the day when they first came out, when I was playing Realm actively, I think the most active I've played Realm prior to now has been 2007 Month of the Mad God. They had chest events all month, right? They usually do that for ModMig. And that was great because it allowed players to basically spend a lot more time on the game to try to get more instances of loot, because now every time you went to a dungeon, you had twice the chance to get loot as opposed to only one time. And then when they added the Tinker quests to add, you know, like all the chests and stuff like that, it sort of was like a domino effect where, like, let's say people are looking for a specific dungeon, right? Like, let's say LOD. Normally, people don't do LODs. LODs are not the most entertaining dungeon to go into. But because you have twice the chance to get loot, you would find more people going into them, and therefore, people can also kill 2 birds with 1 stone by stocking up on marks because there's a lot more people. So in a cemetery, you would rarely see 26 people, right? But since you do, you can be a little bit more lax with how much focus and effort you have to put in, and just kind of follow the party and do whatever you want to do on the side. And they would basically do all the work for you. So it allows players an outlet to sort of leech their way to get a lot of stuff without necessarily exposing themselves to too much danger because there's more people per dungeon. There's rarely a time where you would find a full cemetery or a full layer of Draconis, like ever. So it's a good opportunity. But at the same time, because of how trivial these large parties, even after the cap reduction from 85 to 65, dungeons are still pretty easy once you have a lot of people. Even with the addition of health scaling, it is still better to have more, like the more bodies the better. And some people don't really like that because it essentially eliminates the necessity of going into a realm, like just the regular realms, and trying to get your items or your loot or your dungeons that way. Because why bother searching for Lord of the Lost Lands when people are just dropping ice caves all over? Which means that the only time you would ever want to go realm clearing or into regular realms is when there's an event going on, like the Prismatic event for Oryx, or if there's like 2x event drops. But in that case, people are only going to the realm for a specific purpose of picking up that boss or that loot or whatever, or just one objective. I haven't in a long time gone just random roaming, right? Like just enter into a realm with a bunch of friends and casually play. Like, doesn't matter like if I see maybe an undead layer or a sprite world. I haven't gone into a sprite world in so long because I never needed dex potions anymore. I would just get them through chests, or I would get them through just selling life pots that I get from Lost Halls and whatnot. And I don't need EP staff, I don't need Cloak of the Planewalker. I have more than enough of them because either usually I get them from maybe sometimes even a quest chest, or I would pick them up from an event like Prismatic that can drop a whole bunch of different white bags that you would get normally from other dungeons. So while I like it because it gives you some sort of special reason to want to play the game, at the same time, I think Realm lost its normal purpose or its original essential experience of wanting to go into a realm and just wander about aimlessly with no real direction in mind, no real purpose, and then you, ooh, shard and a potion. What do we get? Speed. Got it. That's not there anymore. You just sit in the Nexus and wait for people to pop keys, like me. Yeah, that's now it could just be me, because I am definitely of a much higher level than the average Realm player, since I have an abundance of characters that are all maxed out, and also a bunch of equipment, a huge surplus of extra equips. So yes, I understand for players who are either running, let's say, pet player experience PPE, or for those who are still trying to get their bearings on the game and they're still dying very frequently, yeah, they have more of a reason to want to travel the regular realms. But for the rest of us, we just kind of sit and something like this happens. In fact, I don't even have to do anything in this dungeon. Since there's so many people, I just chill. And this guy right here, he's popping an OT chain. The benefit of just waiting for some random person to pop keys just far outweighs you manually going through a realm and going after the event bosses or searching for a specific item, because you would just get it normally through here. While I still believe that chest events are very important, I think Deca is doing them a little too frequently. One thing I liked about Maple was that it had usually a specific structure of events, right? Like there would usually be some kind of currency farming event that you can implement into your dailies, and they would also have some other thing that you would be wanting to do. Like there were usually, coin shop events. Like some people were complaining that every event is just a coin shop event, but I actually think that's fine because it at least encourages you to go about your day and to grind for that event, right? But with chest events, by trying to put a different spin on how you collect something, you are eliminating the original way to collect that something, and therefore you're making the game more boring than it was before. And I know that with Realm, there's not too much you can do in terms of events because of the technical limitations and the fact that the game itself is still a Flash game. We have ported over to Unity, but the engine itself has still not been updated. It is still technically a Flash game, and so therefore there's not much you can do. I've proposed a lot of things to Deca about what they could do in terms of events, but ultimately, because of how simple the gameplay is, it's very hard to engineer different things you can do, right? Like, maybe we can find ways to add party quests to the game so you can, instead of just going through with an angry mob and steamrolling through every dungeon, maybe there might be some other coordinated event you can do. But there would not be a really big incentive for that, because players would just be like, alright, then we'll just have people do that in a big mob. They did try to propose an incentive for you to do it in smaller groups and not just steamroll it in public with the guild keys, right? But guilds in Realm are not nearly as, I guess, prioritized for a lot of players as the likes of some other games like MMORPGs. Because the only thing a guild is really for is for you to host private events, right? And because of how easy it is to just have public runs like these, no one really cares about being in a guild In fact, I don't either. I just joined content because I was invited to it and I don't have a guild, so I figured why not, right? But ultimately, in the end, like, guilds are not as significant in this game as people would probably think. And so therefore, there's no real incentive for you to do party quests because those party quests would have to give specific rewards, right? And either those rewards would have to be ST sets. I was actually thinking about this, like, instead of making it so that bosses in dungeons drop ST sets, why not move those ST sets to some other mechanic or some other gameplay element, like party quests? If we can find, let's say, these specific dungeons that you can only go into with like a party of 10, and they all have some objective other than just shoot everything that moves, right? Then maybe it could add a little bit more fun to the game, but that would require you to make, what? Deca would have to make 15 or so party quests to accommodate for all the ST sets, and that's hard to do, because they're not as big of a company as the likes of Nexon or Riot Games or Mojang. It would be much harder for them to get that done. And I've been kind of racking my brain about other things that they can do. Some events they've done have been kind of fun, like I really missed the Alien event because I actually wasn't able to participate in it all too much. It still had the same feeling of just everyone pops keys in Nexus, but at least it wasn't a chest event. It was more just if you wanted to do something else other than, like, if you want to get some really cool reskins for white bags, then you can go into Aliens, right? The Abyss of Demons speedrun event, I don't really consider a game event. I consider more as a community event, and therefore I really didn't participate in it because I don't care too much about the rewards. You would only go in for it, like, you would only go into it for the sake of completionism or for the clout. So I didn't care too much about it. The Machine? I mean, that's an April Fool's event. You can collect a bunch of fancy whites. In fact, I really hate the fake white bag prism. Like, can we just stop? Can there be an option to turn off the fake white bag? I'm just so annoyed by the fact that people are just popping it. I don't... we're DCing again. Well, I mean, whatever. It is what it is. Connection error 002. Or 001. Okay. But yeah, where was I? I don't know. I'm having a hard time figuring out what are some events that we can do other than just keys. I think keys are a great model to be able to remotely access dungeons, to give players an area, a place to just gather together and go into huge parties. But that's all that's been going on in Realm so far. And it's the same issue that I have with dungeons in that because of the steamroll meta of these public discords gathering together and just having huge organized runs that effectively trivialize the difficulty of these dungeons, right? Like when Fungal Cavern came out, obviously no one had any idea what they were doing. People were getting wasted altogether, but then now that Fungal Cavern has basically been I guess dissected and analyzed, it's become a lot easier. And that's something that's unavoidable for these games, for PvE games. Obviously, once you figure out how the dungeon works, it becomes easier. But I was thinking there could be other dungeons out there, or like newer ones that come out, where it doesn't matter how many people you have, or how strong everyone is. If the conditions to complete the dungeon are not met, you will lose. Even for Fungal Cavern, they originally added the whole the crystal thing. You had to power up the drill so you couldn't just like rush through an entire dungeon or full skip it. For the most part, the concept of running around and shooting everything that moves and just killing everything or clearing everything, that's still there. I don't think there exists a single dungeon in Realm where you don't complete it by just destroying everything, right? So I figured adding dungeons that have conditions that you have to meet, like let's say there's a switch you have to turn on, or there's this spire that you have to activate, or some other contingency other than just destroy every minion and every boss that you come across, right? There's, I feel like, a little bit more creative energy that it needs, because at the moment, most of the servers have just changed into, other than US West 3, which is the marketing server, the market server, every other server is just consists of this, people gathering around and waiting for someone to pop a key, like me. That is good. I still think that we should still have these events, right? I think we should have these frequently. I don't think they should come only during Month of the Mad God. I think back then it was like chest events would only pop up in specific months or whatever, or like it was during a holiday or something. They would release an event dungeon like Ice Tomb, or St. Patrick's Day they would release the Leprechaun Rainbow thing, or the pot of gold. April Fools, they would put in the machine or the glitch. So those are cool, right? There needs to be something other than just when's the next chest event coming. Some people have been complaining about it, that it was being really rampant in this time right now, specifically during the spring and winter. And in Deca's defense, we're in quarantine, right? This is their best chance to capitalize from a business perspective. The best chance to capitalize on the much higher player base because of everyone being stuck at home and trying to make a little bit more money out of it. I don't call that nefarious. I just think that's a smart business decision, because this is not just happening for Realm, it's happening for a lot of other games where they're milking a lot of reusable content just for the sake of making some extra money. Would I approve of it? Like, would I encourage people to do that? No, I would think that you still follow your business model or your original plan and your original design philosophy. But at the same time, you can't really blame a company for doing this, because chances are if you were a developer, you would do the same thing too. It's hard as it is already for Deca to make new and innovative content. And while they shouldn't be slacking off on that just because of the quarantine and all that, I don't think it's really that horrendous for people. Like, people are accusing Deca of being just really greedy for money and farming a whole bunch of keys and stuff like that. Like, having all these chest events because they just want players to spend money on the game. I mean, like, yeah, would you rather this or a game that is pay to win in terms of like you need to spend money to get better equipment, right? Some people are saying like, oh, the ST sets are pay to win because you could just reroll through boxes. Yes, that's true. But the option to get them through just regular dungeon farming is still just as easy. It just needs to... It's a question of whether or not you want to invest time or money, right? It's not like a person has to spend... It's not as disproportionate as the likes of some other games where you either spend 20 bucks or you spend 2,000 hours, right? I think I'm like kind of on the fence. I'm usually an on the fence kind of guy. I know people don't like fence sitting because they would rather someone have a strong opinion on it, but at the same time, life isn't just black or white, right? It's not just, oh, one side is, it's always just one side or the other. There's both aspects to the game that you need to consider, right? Those who are bashing Deca for trying to make a quick buck during the quarantine, I mean, I guarantee a good 95% of you guys would want to do the same thing, right? A lot of players are playing right now because everyone's stuck at home, and therefore you should use that opportunity to try to boost up your next bonus check, right? It's not hurting anyone. You're still providing them with a service. You're not scamming anyone anything, and you're not hurting anyone. People are just doing this of their own accord. But at the same time, I think Deca's gone somewhat complacent with the content coming out, because even though there's still a lot of dungeons, like the events that they've been running have just been repeats of the same 3, 5, 6 dungeons. We haven't had a Davy event for several months, and for some dungeons, like, has there ever been like a Candyland Hunting Grounds event or something like that? It's just no. It's mostly just Shatters, Lost Halls, or mostly just Shatters. In fact, I haven't had a lot of events in a long time, which is why I'm really enjoying this, because I can farm up a lot of marks, and if you have good drop rate, then you could sometimes luck out and get like 4 potions, right? And I've gotten one from Nikao and one from Pyre so far. Same with Cemetery. I don't like doing cemeteries normally because they take so long and they're not the safest dungeon out there, especially if there's not many people. But with 60 people, I can comfortably go into a cemetery and not feel like I have to drag my feet along. So these are 2 dungeons that I'm okay with because they haven't done that in a long time. On the other hand, I still stand by the fact that while I don't think it's a bad thing that Deca is trying to push a lot of these events out because there's a lot of people playing and therefore they want to keep everyone occupied, not necessarily entertained, there are ways that you can incorporate more like fun things to do while in an event. The Prism Mimic is one such example of this, but it is still for all intents and purposes a glorified chest event, right? The Prism Mimic is just a chest. That's basically what it is. So it feels like they're just not really putting in as much innovative effort into trying to make events more sustainable. The content that they're releasing, such as a new ST set or a new dungeon, I would rather Deca focus more on creating new events rather than creating new content, because part of what makes online games so fun is that you can retrofit things to make them more popular by adding events on top of it. But they haven't really been doing that. They've been focused more on trying to create new content for the game and stalling us with these events, like, just trying to keep us entertained until the next big expansion comes out. Like right now, they're working on Oryx 3 and they've been working on Unity Exalt and they released Bard, right? But during that time, they've been keeping us busy with chest events. you can keep us busy with more than just chest events, right? Like, you can do more things. And despite Realm's limitation when it comes to gameplay, you know, I still think there's a lot of stuff you can do. You know, the players in the community have been theory crafting for quite a bit, and a lot of the ideas that people propose, I think would be really good. Of course, being a game designer myself, I think that it's a little unrealistic for you to expect Deca to do these things, because the community often has this issue, for not just this community, but a lot of video game communities have this issue where a lot of the things that they propose, a lot of gameplay changes or whatever, they think that the developers could just do it easily, just like in a snap. Not always. Sometimes you have to run through an entire logistical process to get something done. For Riot Games, obviously they need to get Tencent's approval and everything, which is why, you know, Tencent, they're just like, make the next Lux skin or make the 55th, I don't know, Yasuo skin or something like that, right? As opposed to trying to fix the game, quote unquote, they're just more focused on making skins. That's not necessarily Riot's fault, because Tencent is running the game, right? Now Deca, on the other hand, they don't have that restriction. They are their own independent company. But they are faced with a different issue of not having enough people to work on the game. It is still a small company. Deca, I think, is still considered an indie game company, so I don't think it's wise or practical to put them on the same playing field as a bunch of bigger companies, because while yes, Deca is making quite a bit of money from this game, just based on how many people are buying keys or how many people are spending gold on the game, it's just a matter of they just don't have enough people, right? It's also a matter of whether or not they think it's in their best interest or their design philosophy for the game. For one person, like if one person proposes to make Realm of the Mad God a platforming game and another person proposes Realm of the Mad God to be a first-person shooter, it's just a matter of a lot of people voicing their opinions and not necessarily knowing which one you want to follow. So a level of discretion is added into the mix, which is why you have to be very selective with what kind of feedback you want to actually go through with. There's a really cool video I watched about taking feedback and how sometimes listening to feedback that looks like it might be a really good idea for the game could actually be more detrimental to the game than if you were to just ignore it entirely. It's a really complicated situation. I'm both on the side of I think Deca should definitely do more with their events, but at the same time I'm also on the side of I don't think that people are in the right to say that Deca is just being lazy with their event, or like Deca's being greedy, right? Because a lot of companies do this, right? The whole point of a game company is to just stay afloat. Obviously, sure, there are some companies that make more money than they'll ever need, but at the same time, you can't really blame them for wanting to make money. That is kind of the point of making games, right? Or that's kind of the point of sustaining a game. No matter how noble or no matter how pure your intentions are, people still need to pay their bills, people still need to put food on the tables, you know, people still need to, they have to cover salaries and stuff like that, insurance and whatnot. Money's always going to be there. And as far as I'm concerned, they're not hurting anyone. People are actively making their own decisions and they're purchasing keys and doing these events and participating in them of their own volition. So no one's being hurt by this. I don't understand why people are drawing this narrative that this is hurting the game. Sure, it is diverting the player's mentality of, instead of exploring the realm and playing Realm of the Mad God quote unquote the normal way, everyone's just now sitting in Nexus waiting for keys to spawn and stuff like that. The thing is, like, why wouldn't, like, that's just the most practical thing to do, right? It's something that the community has induced on itself. Keys have been around forever. It's just that these events have incentivized people to believe that it is more cost effective for their time to purchase these keys and pop them in, you know, a Nexus, as opposed to manually finding the dungeons. It just makes practical sense, right? So therefore, I feel like the root problem we have to address is just how Deca conducts their events. Chest events have been cool, and they should still remain here. I think they're great because it allows players to have an easier time farming for sometimes tedious dungeons. But we're kind of getting bored of it because that's all that we're having, and to the point where it's kind of the rule now, no longer the exception. I think I've been kind of going in circles. See, this is, like I said, I'm not very good at live commentary in terms of playing a game and talking to a person, or talking to myself rather. If I was talking to someone else, it'll be a lot easier for me to bounce ideas back and forth with that person, but when I'm by myself, it's a lot harder for me to talk, because I'm trying to continue a conversation with myself. So I do apologize with how rambly this video is. Yes, in post-production I will be editing out a lot of stuttering or maybe just some pointless dialogue that doesn't really pertain to the conversation. But I hope you guys are okay with this. I just want to talk a little bit. I spent about almost a month doing nothing but scripted content, and so I thought maybe a nice live commentary, a conversational video, something more casual, here and there would not hurt, and I do enjoy it. I would normally be talking about this stuff on stream to have someone to participate with, but streaming for me is also kind of exhausting. I'm just not very comfortable with needing to entertain for hours and hours at a time. Sometimes I just like to spend an evening and play quietly, maybe watch a movie on the side. But yeah, I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts if you've made it this far into the video on what you think about the current state of events in the game. I think that there's a few things that I think could be easy fixes, and a few things that I think Deca definitely would have to invest a lot more time and energy into and more resources. But I don't think either side will work well without the other. You need to kind of have both. Oh well, we'll figure out how it goes. But hope you guys enjoyed watching, and like I said, I apologize for how all over the place I was in this video. But if you enjoyed, a rating would be much appreciated. And let me know also if you want me to do more of these types of commentaries. Maybe I might throw in one, I might do one a week or something, I'm not sure. Because I still do enjoy scripted content because I like outlining my thoughts into words to keep it more concise. So it's, it's what it is. Alright guys, well it's getting kind of late, so I'll end it off here. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon in the next video. Take care.